I wish it was better news, but this is my advice. And they were like, you know what? Thank you so much for being honest. Like we had a unit in Oshawa and the guy told us the opposite. He promised us he'd get it done and then it sat forever and it never sold and it was too high and we burned up time and money. And they're like, thank you for being honest. We're just going to rent it. I'm like, right on, guys. Rock and roll.
And that's the best, honesty is key in so many cases. Like, it's just better to do so.
Welcome to the Ottawa Property Podcast with your hosts, Tony McNeil and Adolfo Alvarenga. Each week, they'll take a look at what's happening in the Ottawa real estate market and offer practical advice and insights for listeners. From market updates to success stories, they cover it all. Whether you're a first-time homebuyer, a seasoned investor, or just curious about the property landscape in Canada's capital, they've got you covered. Sit back, get comfortable, and let's get into it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Ottawa Property Podcast. My name is Tony McNeil. I am a realtor based out of Ottawa, Canada, joined always by my co-host to my left, Adolfo Alvarenga, level 2 mortgage agent, ironically also based in Ottawa. Every week,
Ironically,
we're checking in with you guys, letting you know what's going on in our local market here in Ottawa, both on the real estate and mortgage perspective. If you're following along on the audio platforms, please give us a like, give us a share with someone you think could benefit from it. Drop us a comment. Let us know that you're out there. There's a couple of likes on the last episode, so it's working. Maybe follow us. That'd be cool.
Give us something to work for.
Yeah, exactly. We're probably just need some, what do they call that? We need some reassurance that people are out there and they like what we're talking about. That being said, Adolfo, man, what is up?
What is up? We are having a chill week. It seems, or day,
Hey,
cheers.
May 2-4.
Long weekend.
May 2-4 weekend.
Still don't have any idea how that works, but sure. I'll go with
Yeah, traditionally always the weekend before. I think it's just the way it lines up, but it's the Victoria Day holiday. What's that going to mean for the market, I wonder? Are there deals to be had, or is it going to be crickets for most people?
Well, personally, I think like crickets until after the holiday.
Mm-hmm. You'll see some financing conditions probably roll through on Tuesday.
Yeah. Which I actually, funny enough, I had one for next week.
Oh, there you go.
And I'm proud to say that I did it in less than 24 hours.
You were like, I'm dealing with this before I check out for the long weekend.
And and that's why it's important in our industry for the relationships. I literally got the offer in the morning, submitted it, sent it in. I had it ready to go, sent it in. The approval came back in the afternoon.
Dang.
And I was like, the buyer basically says like, you didn't even need the 5 days, then why would we do it? And I'm like, because I prefer to surprise. I don't know how overwhelmed my underwriter is at that point.
Over delivering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's always about that. It's never, what is it? Under promise. I prefer to under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
That's the saying. Yeah, there you go. So it worked out, but it was supposed to be after the long weekend. And sometimes the funny, interesting part is sometimes we forget that there's a holiday, that the banks usually don't work on holidays.
Absolutely.
So we lose a day of conditions.
True.
On that end.
Yeah, we even for closing dates, sometimes we make mistakes. I made a deal a couple of months ago, and we set the closing for the Monday coming.
Oh, for this Monday?
Yeah. Well,
good for you.
We corrected it already. It's not a big deal. We caught it almost immediately after, but myself and the other agent were both like oblivious to the May 24th holiday. We sent it off for financing, and the Scotiabank rep was like, you guys, you made this for a holiday. And we're like, we'll get that fixed for you. Bump it to Tuesday.
Because it doesn't matter if even the lawyer is working, even if the bank is working, the land registry is not working.
Yeah, no one's
so no way you can register
anything.
That.
Yeah. So it all works out. I don't know. I think long weekends have a bit of a it can go either way. I've had success with buyers on long weekends because you don't have a whole lot of other people out shopping around at the same time. Now that being said, most buyers that are really active and trying to get something done quickly are all, still very focused on these long weekends. But I will say, for sure, there's opportunity on both sides of the coin.
Totally. And I think that it just, the ones that are shopping right now are the most serious buyers.
Yeah.
Like, hands down. There's no curiosity or anything like that. So if I don't know if it's the right weekend to make an open house, though. That's what I wouldn't know.
Yeah, no open houses for me this weekend. It's so tough, right? Open houses can go so many ways.
It could be a hit. It could be a miss. Like people are usually away this weekend because it's kind of the weekend that starts summer.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, there was people doing open houses on Mother's Day a couple of weeks ago. It depends. I look back at it like when I first started 6 years ago. I didn't have, hadn't started a family. I was very much like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. No one else was gonna. Yeah, why not? I'll go sit in an open house for a couple hours. Like, what do I have to lose except time?
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas now I'm like, oh, long weekend. Sophie's gonna be out of daycare. Lisa's gonna be off work. Like, I'd probably rather spend those days with them.
Yeah, I mean, you got a life too, right? Like that's what we also have to remember.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not to say I won't do showings. Like, I've got showings booked tomorrow night. But we'll head out for the long weekend. We're gonna go see some family out of town.
Nice.
Yeah.
Out of town, where are you heading?
Kingston, Jamaica. I mean, Ontario.
That's a great travel.
How many hours? Quick turnaround.
How many hours of drive?
It's no, it'll be good. They got Lisa has some family outside of Kingston, man. They're the best, and they have such a nice spot around the water there. It's pretty special.
Hopefully the weather holds up.
I mean, even if it doesn't, like, it's
Still
fine.
there.
We went out there for what was the last big holiday before May 24? Easter. Yeah, we went out there for Easter. It was nice. It was chilly, but you dress.
You dress accordingly to it.
Yeah. So I mean, back to the topic at hand. Not
Yes.
that everyone's interested in my weekend plans, but I do think open houses can go either way. And what I'm seeing now, and this is kind of what we wanted to talk about today specifically, was buyer versus seller market.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Because you probably hear it all the time. During the pandemic, it was a heavy seller's market, meaning if something was listed, it was likely selling, within a week at full ask or over asking. Sellers kind of had all the cards. You were seeing offers without conditions of financing or inspection. Price houses selling firm and for over asking and very quickly. But we are not necessarily in that kind of scenario anymore unless it's the right property in the right pocket of the city. So I think it's cool to kind of.
I think to add to that too, it's also the right pricing.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Not just location but also
Absolutely.
the pricing.
100%.
Because, and like, I'm not an expert at this because I don't see that day to day. That's your area of the coin. But if the pricing is overpriced, there's a lot of times that the property will sit there for a while. Whereas if I've seen a lot of them been taken in a couple of days from it being in the market, if it's priced accordingly.
For sure. Well, there's pockets that people are waiting to get into, right? And if they see a good opportunity, there's no messing around. So I've seen it both this week, funny enough. So it's a good time to bring this up. I did a listing appointment for someone trying to sell a 1-bedroom condo in the Byward market.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be a hard one.
Yeah, and that. You're in the industry, right? Of course you would know that.
Condos have been flat.
Yeah, we said this last episode. Since I've been watching the condo numbers since October 2023, it pretty much has been no growth. Yeah. Clear. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news in these situations, but I don't want to sugarcoat anything. I don't like telling promising people the moon, saying that I can get something done when their expectations of price are not realistic. So, I won't go into super, intense detail on this, but safe to say that there is a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom condo in the market. It's, it's not one of the newer ones that we see that have flooded the inventory as of last year, but it's in the market nonetheless. It's competing with all those listings as well. So I ran the numbers, and I want to say something first. I want to preface this by saying, when you see realtors, when you see mortgage brokers, whoever talking about market stats, and we do it here on the show too, but I always like to put the asterisks on it of like, it's very specific to the neighborhood. But we can't just throw a blanket over Ottawa and say, this is the months of inventory. It's 3 months. Because that's what it would be. It'd be about 3 months or so, which would indicate more of a balanced market. Whereas if you look at specific pockets, like the Byward market, for example, it's very, very, very one-sided in that it's a full-on buyer's market down there.
So that meaning that there is more power to the buyer than there is to the seller.
100%. Yeah. So I think when I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, I don't have the email, but I'll spitball to say like there was something like 58 one bedroom, one bathroom condos for sale in the Byward market as of, last week. It's probably gone up since then.
Why would you say is that?
Well, I think there's plenty of reasons. One is likely in the newer buildings, people bought these properties maybe towards the end of the pandemic. Now they've closed on them, and they're probably realizing that, the rents that they're kind of commanding are not anywhere close to what they need in terms of a mortgage payment.
To break even, you mean?
Yeah. So it's like, how long is it going to take me to hold on to this property to get to that point where I can break even, pay the commission, pay the closing costs from the seller's perspective? Like, I think it's going to be years, man.
It's hard, man, because like a lot of people buy that investments thinking, especially towards the end of the pandemic, thinking like, oh, the prices are going to go up on these.
Yeah.
And you're buying on paper. And
it was all speculation, right?
Yeah, but the thing with that is that if you like remove 2022, 2023 from the market, most of the time when you bought on paper, it meant by the time you were closing, you were up a couple grand.
100%.
Like 20 to 30 grand.
Sometimes
at least.
more.
Sometimes more, if not more, right?
Yeah.
Like remove the pandemic years and it was still consistently in that way. Like I remember as a family, we bought a condo in pre-construction years ago. And by the time we closed on it, it was worth like 80K more.
Yeah.
And we just kept going and did that for a couple of them.
That's great, man.
But then we saw how it started to stag.
And time to switch up our strategy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad investment strategy if I feel that you put some use to it. So like, let's say for example, in our story, we lived in it. So we recouped what we would have paid for rent somewhere on that point.
That's
right? So at least there's one way to look at it in terms of that benefit. However, if you're buying it specifically for a rental, it's hard to see the cash, like monetary on a monthly basis, to see a return on investment there. Will there not be a return on investment? Not saying that. Like maybe throughout the years you see a return on investment, but it's not going to be immediate. That's for sure.
Well, and that's exactly it, right? And that's the point I'm making is that, let's say, out of these 58 units that were available, let's say even 20 of them were, people that didn't want to stay in the game. Mm-hmm. They want out. They're probably selling at a loss just to be done with this. Because if you look at it this way, again, we don't know the way that this appreciation is going to go. Like condo projects have kind of dried up a bit, so it likely will put some more stress on inventory 2, 3, 5 years from now. But if you're only getting $1,800 a month for this rental, but your mortgage is $2,400.
Yeah, you're and that's just your mortgage at that point. What about your condo fees and
property taxes? That's exactly. So like let's say you're bleeding anywhere from $600 to $1,000 a month, times that by 12, times that by possibly 5 years until you break. I guess what I'm saying is the long term of trying to carry that property doesn't make any sense to try to get it back to where you paid for it. Like you may actually be better off cutting your losses and just saying, okay, I made a mistake. It was a bad investment. I'm going to move on from this.
Totally. And like, that's the hard part is realizing that, I feel.
Oh yeah. Well, no one likes to admit they made a mistake. I'm the same way.
Or losing
money, thousands of dollars.
I'm the worst of it. If I lose $1, I'm like
100%, man. Unless it's at the roulette table, and then I'm like, put it on black. No, it just
took my chances. It didn't work out.
It didn't work out 50-50. But in all seriousness, so there's 58 units. When I did the math on what had actually sold in April, it was like, I think it was something like 9 or 10 units had sold.
Okay.
So if you're looking for months of inventory, you take the number of sales, you divide it by the current inventory, it would somewhere be like 5.9 or 5.8 months of inventory.
What I find it hard too is that, especially given like the market and stuff, is the market has shifted throughout the years in so many, like it was such a, I would say more of a destination beforehand than it is kind of now. Not saying it isn't, but not as much as it used to be.
No, it hurts. It's hurting right now.
It's hurting. Like
it's got a bad reputation.
Exactly. And like, I wonder why. And I guess that's why they implemented that City of Ottawa nightmare basically that role and stuff to try to get.
I saw something this week about that.
I have no
nightmare,
idea.
Actually,
Okay.
Like apparently, if you're an Ottawa venue, you can now apply for a special permit to sell booze to like 5 a.m. for certain nights.
Oh wow.
To try to get some more of that like nightlife that Montreal and Toronto has. They do this thing in Toronto called Nuit Blanche, which is like I guess White Night.
Okay.
But it's kind of like an art crawl. Yeah, there's music, there's art exhibits. Like we did it one year with a couple of buddies, and man, we stayed out till like 7 a.m. We had a blast. Like we weren't like obliterated or any of that, but like you're doing a crawl. You hop around all these different spots. We saw music. It was so cool. You know, we're having like A&W breakfast. And we're like, what is going on? It was fun. It was really memorable. Maybe something like that in Ottawa could help the market kind of stimulate
and boost up for sure. And again, it's hard to say what's causing it. It's just different, and I don't know if that helps.
Yeah. So anyway, 5.8 months of inventory. What we mean by months of inventory is that if nothing new hit the market, if not a single new listing came to MLS, it would take 5.8 months for every single listing that's currently on market to be purchased.
And demand continues at the same speed.
Yeah. So when we're in the 5, and I like to say like 4+, 5+ certainly is full on buyer's market. Like they just have so much choice.
Yeah.
So you as a seller, like how can you get your price? And you know you're going to be dealing with certainly status certificate reviews, inspections if the buyer wishes, and financing conditions for sure. When you have so much choice, it almost becomes overwhelming for the buyer too, because they're like, well, man, I got, you know, say if my budget's $400,000 for a 1-bedroom condo, I have 58 choices.
And at the same time, they can negotiate.
100%.
So much,
you better believe they're going to try. If their agent isn't, then
fire the agent.
Yeah.
Right now, you heard it here. Fire the agent.
And hire me.
And hire Tony.
No, I don't know if I can say that.
You're soliciting business. How good are you?
I know. Rico's probably knocking on the door. But I was very straight with them. You know, they had a target price in mind, and I just said it's not at all realistic. This is where you'd probably need to be in order to list. And if there was no activity at this price, then I would be recommending that you're going to be somewhere falling between. Anyway, it was like low to mid 3s. What I thought they would probably get.
What was like, if you don't mind sharing, what was their target price?
It was over 4.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So that's a big haircut.
Well, I mean, what they paid for it is not necessarily over 4.
They
but
just wanted
their
to get over
expectation
4.
was that, which I get. You know, everyone's factoring in costs and what it costs to sell and commissions, that type of thing. But the reality is, like, the data just doesn't support it, right? And
at this moment, at least.
Yeah, and a good realtor should be leaning on the data just to say, like, you know, it's not about us not being able to market the property properly. We just, the numbers do not lie. They never, ever lie.
So I have a question, and I'm going to put you on the spot at this point. Because I see this often too, and sometimes I dislike it. It's false promises. Like with some in the industry with it. And it's just more of like telling the seller, like, you want this, I can do that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that people do that all the time, my friend.
And to try to get
they want
sale,
the contract, and then they want to try to whittle the seller down from their number over the next 3 to 6 months until the property sells.
Yeah, and my concern about that is because a lot of the times, like, I'm not saying this is the case for everybody, but sometimes they're selling to buy something else.
Yeah.
And if you're on the hook at that point and you've gone already to buy something, you already have a contract on that and you haven't sold, the easiest thing the agent's going to tell you is just cut your price. You know, and like, obviously,
when all else fails, you have nothing wrong, left to throw at the wall. What do you do, right?
What are you going to do at that point? But then it's like, and I'm not going to point it to your client, but like, should they, if they end up selling to what you had originally told them, whose advice at that point was more concrete? You know what I mean? Like, because I've seen it in the past.
It's happened
like,
to me
right after the pandemic, and it's happened to me with a client. It was unfortunately a bad story because it just, the way it just kind of, everything happened. Just after the pandemic, neighbor basically sold for way more during the pandemic. So he had that number in mind.
Yep.
He had already bought something else. The original plan that we had planned, because if we had bought in paper, was that he was going to keep both. Didn't end up keeping both. Plans shifted, so we had to accommodate. Hired the realtor that sold that neighbor's house at that high price point, and the realtor I recommended at the time, I didn't know you then, by the way, sorry, but the realtor I recommended at the time, you would probably wouldn't have gotten it because of this.
I didn't get it by the sounds of it.
Told them what the price, according to the data, what it would sell in that moment.
But the market shifted very quickly.
No. So exactly. So no. But that's he told them based on the current market.
Oh, okay. So the market shift had already occurred.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but then the other realtor had mentioned a higher number.
Yeah, and we're human beings.
We try to go for the highest.
Why wouldn't you?
And I totally agree. I understand that. But then, in the situation, no, he wasn't getting the offers of asking price.
Yeah.
Because the market has shifted. There was buyers, but there wasn't buyers for that or demand for that price point because they're seeing what else is comparables are selling in the area, right? So it ended up selling almost at the price that the original realtor had said. That's like the one I recommended had said.
Yeah.
Like not exactly, but close enough. But it's just kind of because it would have created this expectation of like, this is what you would have done. We could have shifted our game plan accordingly to it, instead of it being forced at that point to sell because you were already on the hook for another one.
What I would say to you, I think you're absolutely right. And to the other realtors' credit who didn't get the listing, their price, and you said that it's not far off what they originally recommended they list for, they might have actually gotten that had they listed there from the start. But when you overprice from the start and you got to try to work your way down, not only do you waste time, but you lose that kind of that first impression that you only get one chance to go live, right? And if you miss the mark, it can hurt you in the long run if people see price reduction after price reduction.
Because it makes you look desperate.
It could.
At that point.
Yeah. Or people just say like, oh, they'll probably lower it again. I'll wait to see what happens.
Or we'll negotiate, we'll lowball it because it seems like they would need to sell.
And if days on market get up past 30, 45, 60 days, you don't ever expect a full price offer. Like I'd be very surprised at how many times in life that actually worked out for people.
Yeah. And it's hard because sometimes people will fall in love with the home and walk in and fall in love and see like, well, this is what we want. We'll ask for asking. But if there's no competing offers, it's most of the time there's room for negotiation. That's where it's set.
Yeah.
So like, let's say for example, like I had a client, I was talking to a realtor about this. They had a client who wanted to put in an offer for a home, and she had already talked to the listing agent. She said that there's most likely an offer, but then the client backed out. Said like, you know what, numbers don't work for whatever reason. He's like, I'm gonna back out of it. But the listing agent told her she already had an offer and was asking if there was going to be another offer come in. So it makes it seem as like you want to have that competition to kind of, get it going a bit, which I understand because you're looking for the best interest of your client in terms of the sale. Right,
Yeah,
that point.
Of course.
But it was just interesting how that had to shift at that point.
Yeah.
For the listing agent because they're okay, this is the only offer we have presented to the client because they're applied to, right? Tell everybody who did a showing to see if they wanted to do an offer. But it's just it's interesting how dynamics in markets shift according to how demand is according to that week, and it's been on a weekly basis that we're seeing this.
I think you're absolutely right. In the market specifically, it's been a bit of a bloodbath for a while, and even on the rental side of things now. Because my advice to him was that if this is not what you feel comfortable selling at, then you should rent this again. Like, you shouldn't sell it.
Had you rented it beforehand?
It was a rental, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then, the subsequent question was like, well, can I get more than what it's currently renting for? And I said, no. Like, the market rents in the market have gone down. And it's just like, we had a giant tower go live like November last year, and I had a couple of rentals in that building. I struggled to rent those because there was just so much competition.
Yeah,
we got it done, but
now.
It's tough, right? So like those were renting at like $1,800 Gesundheit. Those are renting at like $1,800 a unit, and he was getting 24. I'm like, I don't know if it's a nice. He has a bigger unit and a better section of the market, so it does command a little bit more than that. But like, it depends who the renter is. Most people nowadays, where money is tight and inflation's up and everyone's watching their pocketbooks, people don't necessarily feel comfortable spending the extra couple $100 a month. Like, they'd probably rather save it.
They'll make some sacrifices for sure in some ways.
I think that's very much the reality of everything, not just the Byward market, but most pockets of the city.
Oh, totally. Hands down, totally. And I think that the days where like landlords could just charge whatever they wanted for
it's over.
Their place, and just because demand was there is over. Like you won't see that, and a lot of the times you're gonna see a lot of the landlords like stress because they're want to get the same that they got beforehand.
Yeah, or they don't want their property to sit vacant either, right?
Or it sits vacant. So it just kind of depends on what are you willing to do, lower the rent, or you or let it sit for a bit.
In neither situation wasn't a positive conversation, I guess, on either side of the coin. But like I just said to my colleague, I'm like, you got to tell the truth, and on both sides, because if you try to promise something, like you said, shoot high and try to over deliver on something that is not realistic. So then what? The property is now listed too high, so you're not going to get any offers. How long until you do a price reduction?
Yeah.
Or do you keep doing price reductions? Is it 1 month? Is it 2 months? And all the while, this property sitting vacant, so the seller's paying the mortgage.
Totally.
And now all of a sudden, you don't have any tenant, you don't have any offers, property sitting vacant. You got to try to find someone for that to rent it to. Like you're talking, like you burned up essentially 2 to 4 months of someone's time and money.
Yeah, and
it's just not right to do to someone who's already in a bad. I don't know if he's in a bad, but someone who's not in a great position on any investment. If there's a mortgage on it.
No, and I agree with that, because then it's like you're doing a disservice by necessarily trying to go with what they would want.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's like at that point, like as a professional, in my opinion, I would be more like, okay, this is what I think I can do. If you think that somebody else can do it, by all means. But then it doesn't seem like you're wasting that person's time.
I want to help people, right?
Correct.
But me telling them what they want to hear is not helping them, and it turns me into the bad guy, and it makes it a bad experience for everybody when I'm not doing them justice from the start and just telling them like it is. We sometimes just got to rip the Band-Aid off. And funny enough, that was the second of two of the same, essentially the same conversations. It was another listing appointment for a townhome in Orleans. Mm-hmm. And they had bought it new throughout the pandemic. There'd been a tenant in it for the last year. The tenant was leaving. So they weren't like, hey, we really want to sell. They were just like, hey, the tenant's leaving, so we just want to see like what's your number? Yeah. And I gave my number, and it was the same thing. I was like, guys, you need to keep renting this, because you like what you paid for versus what it's worth. You haven't recouped it yet. You're not even close. And then if you pay commission and closings on top of this,
you're down as more additional to it. I think that at that point you may hold it for a longer time. Don't know how long that will be, but in the long term, you will recoup that funds.
Yeah. I think so.
It's not going to be the next year or 2 years. It might be the next 5 years, if not more. But who knows? Like, it's hard to say.
And this couple were so nice. They were referred to me by an old colleague from Guelph, and they have. I guess it sounded like they have a couple of rentals, kind of in southern Ontario. And this is, I think a lot of people from the GTA came out here during the pandemic because the prices were so much better for rentals and that type of thing. But I told them straight up, I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I wish it was better news, but this is my advice. And they were like, you know what? Thank you so much for being honest. Like, we had a unit in Oshawa, and the guy told us the opposite. He promised us he'd get it done, and then it sat forever, and it never sold, and it was too high, and we burned up time and money. And they're like, thank you for being honest. We're just going to rent it. I'm like, right on, guys. Rock and roll.
And that's the best, honesty is key in so many cases. Like, it's just better to do so.
Yeah. So, like, back to the topic at hand. We're talking about very high buyer kind of markets in certain pockets of the city. It really depends on the product and the location, and that's obviously not just townhomes in Orleans. It could be detached. It could be condos in the market. It could be condos in Barrhaven. Like, we're seeing a bit of everything. Mm-hmm. The demand is just different for certain product types. So on the other side of that coin, I had a situation this week. Clients that are looking kind of in the $600,000 range, let's say. So it's a good townhome budget, basically anywhere in the city for sure, but they want to be very central. So we're kind of looking in Carling area, Central Park area, and there was a listing. It came out one day on the market. It was listed for $585.
Okay.
They had expressed interest in it. Now their timeline's a bit pushed, so it's very exploratory at this point. But the next day I did a virtual showing at a different property, which was interesting. We should talk more about older homes next episode.
Okay.
It had like cast iron, had an oiled furnace, had a bunch of stuff that was like, I probably wouldn't go near this. But anyway, because my house is the same age, so I know from experience. But they said, Tony, we tried to find this house again on your app, and we couldn't see it. So I looked it up while I have them on the phone. It sold in one day, no conditions, firm, $15,000 over asking.
At 585.
So it sold at 601.
Wow.
Yeah. So someone knew what they wanted.
But that's the thing. It's like how can you secure what you want in a market where there's still the demand? The demand has not disappeared, in my opinion. The demand's there. It's just a matter of finding the right properties.
And the right price.
At the right price.
You said it at the beginning of the episode,
Correct.
The right price.
At the right price. Because like I had a similar situation where I had a client, house came up, been in the market. They had already done a couple of showings of other places. They had already put offers on other places and lost. But then the house that literally clicked all of their boxes, location, price point, what they needed because their family is growing, and he was going to try to negotiate 25,000. Yeah. And he asked for my honest opinion, and I'm like, this is how much 25,000 is going to cost you on a monthly basis. And it was like, is it worth you potentially losing it? If
their house is the perfect house for you.
If it's the perfect house.
Yeah.
And that was my advice to him. And I basically said, like, this is my opinion. If you end up asking what they were listing at, and then put a shorter revocable to kind of put them on the other side kind of going, there's a big chance that they'll accept it.
Yeah.
And eventually he said that, okay, this is what it would have cost me. They're okay with swallowing that extra bit of funds that they would have cost them on a monthly basis. And they got it. Like, you're talking, the property was in the market for 3 days.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, unless your price is way, way off, there's not too many people that are going to want to negotiate $25,000 after 3 days on market.
No, of course not. Because then it's like you're kind of, well, this is the first offer we got in 3 days. We should be able to get another offer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you're kind of proving us right here.
Exactly.
Right? You're kind of justifying our price by lowering it by that much.
Yeah.
Because you clearly want it.
It's you're just trying to have that sensation of winning, which we all as humans want to. I understand that.
But isn't winning just getting the property too? Like, if you got the house that you love and you paid market price for it, like, isn't that the win?
That's also winning, in my opinion, too. But it just depends on what your definition of winning is at that point.
Yeah, like, what do we gotta haggle so hard? Sometimes?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes there's just not necessarily any room to wiggle on something like that.
Sometimes it's not, and sometimes you just want a deal. Like, it's like you want to feel the sensation that there's a deal in place and that you got it. But if this is something that's your dream, you hit all your boxes, you're not necessarily in a time crunch, but you want to get a bigger home because your family's getting bigger. Like, in the long run, is that difference on a monthly basis going to affect you?
That's it, man.
And that's the question that you should ask as a buyer at that point. It's like, does it make sense, right? So
it's tough. Every situation is different, and that's the truth. And that doesn't apply to just you purchasing or anyone selling.
Yeah.
It depends on where you're at in the city. So I think I think we did a good job here today, man. I think anyone listening, if you're still there, leave us a comment with the length of the podcast at this point. I made it to minute 35. Drop it in the comment. But I think it's important for anyone to know that, like, it really depends. Like, you should not believe everything you see in the news or on your friends, buddies, aunts Instagram page about what rates or what the market is doing or months of inventory, or it's so hyper specific to neighborhoods that you just need to have conversations.
I mean, the market has been crashing since 2020, according to the news. So
this is true.
I don't. That's like, it just depends. If the market was crashing, if the bubble burst, we'd be out of jobs already by now. But
yeah, jeez.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, it's just talk to the professionals. Just have a conversation. It's free to chat with us. Like, we at any point, our calendar links are below. You can book an appointment easily as that whenever it's accessible for you.
Yeah.
And like, we're happy to help people. And that's how I see it. Like, if I can be of assistance amazing.
Yep, exactly. And that goes, there's been plenty of people that you and I probably both helped where they didn't even end up buying or selling.
No, but we set them up in a proper plan that maybe they would down the line.
Well, two this week where I was like, hey, I'd love to sell your house, but I would feel really slimy if I did it.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Well, with they should be renting them.
Oh, yeah, the ones you just said. Yeah, okay.
I could have tried my best to.
You probably could have, but it wouldn't have been the price point that they wanted at that point.
And I'm not sleeping well at night, man. My anxiety can't handle it.
You're already not sleeping at night because of everything that you have to do. This would just be added onto that at that point.
Such a long list of things to do this weekend. I'm gonna get this cabinet finally painted, man.
Not gonna wait. Hopefully it does.
Every time I want to do it, I'm like, the universe is like, here's 5 other things for you to do.
You're lucky. We don't know, but maybe some of the listeners that have been listening since December.
Yeah, he still hasn't finished.
He still hasn't finished. How big is this cabinet?
Yeah. God, his wife must love him so much to be able to put up with that. No, I have to get it finished, not fixed. I'm gonna prime it maybe tonight. We'll see.
Yeah, you got the tools for it, so hopefully the paint gun works.
Yeah, it was funny. I'll tell you about it off camera, but I gotta pivot a bit. I gotta prime it with a roller and then spray it with the other stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
Apparently, this shellac-based primer I'm using has a high alcohol content. So if you use it in one of these guns that you have, which requires like a spark because it's plugged into the wall, it can be very hazardous. Yeah.
So that project would definitely go immediately burned without it being done. Okay. I think this is our cue to log out.
Yeah, TBD. This guy's got to jump on a call. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you found the episode helpful. Like I said, drop us a comment. Share what someone you think could benefit from it. And honestly, if you have any questions about your specific neighborhood or buying and selling anywhere in Ottawa, drop us a line, a Calendly link, an email, a text, whatever. You can find us. You can find all our contact info online. So happy May 24. It's the 24th of May, and I got to get away.
That's a saying that he does from his place, from Newfoundland.
Yeah.
Newfoundland. Anyway, have a good long
Everyone
weekend.
camping in Newfoundland this weekend is dealing with snow, I guarantee it. Anyway, every time. Have a good weekend.
Good weekend.
Peace.
Ciao.